Hello, everyone. I'm excited to introduce a new feature of the boberdoo system. It's boberdoo's bid modifier. Uh, the bid modifier allows you to customize your bid calculations for specific incoming pings without the need to have to create multiple filter sets for that use case. So this allows both lead buyers and lead sellers to make adjustments. Lead buyers could make adjustments to the price or the actual bid being returned back to the vendors, and lead sellers can adjust the margin based off of that incoming ping to adjust the bid that they're going to return back based not only off of who they're going to sell the lead to and how much, but also those incoming pings. So for example, source and sub ID combinations. Anybody that deals with aggregators knows there are some source sub IDs that perform very well. Others may perform less successfully. And so this would allow you to build those modifications without having to work to create a whole set of filter sets for that exception. Another good use case is based on states, where you can then vary that bid or the margin that you're taking. So in hyper competitive geos, you can, for example, take less margin so that you can win more of those leads on behalf of your clients. The bid modifier is an optional add-on. There is an additional flat cost of $250 per month, and incoming actions are counted towards your monthly fee. We are currently, as of the time of this video, waiving that monthly cost for boberdoo clients so that you can get it set up and tested so you won't be counted for those incoming actions. So we're going to take a look at the setup process for a bid modifier in a couple of different use cases using a boberdoo lead system here. So the bid modifier is part of the outside services suite. We will ask you to put in a ticket to get started so we can enable it for your system. And then once it is, it lives in the ping section of outside services. This is going to be where we will make that adjustment. So you can see here our bid modifier, and then you can choose what types sources. So if you're grouping sources or if it's applied to all sources, you can make those adjustments as needed and check, group those sources for that use case. So for our first use case here, we are going to modify the margin based off of the geolocation. So in this use case here, we're going to say that California is a hyper competitive area. So as a lead seller, I want to take less margin when leads are coming from California than my standard so that I can win more of those leads for my client. So again, we're going to select whichever sources are needed, and then we can choose what to modify. In this case here, I am a lead seller, so I'm going to modify margin. And then here is that adjustment I'm going to make. So again, it is a competitive geo, so I'm going to take 50% less margin than I would otherwise normally take. The maximum best price is here as a ceiling, again, to make sure you don't go over a certain amount. And then as with all things boberdoo, I would encourage you to put in a limit, at least to get started. The next step we come to is where we set the conditions of that incoming ping that will have that 50% margin adjustment. So you can, for example, this would be based off of any of the filtered fields in your lead type, source, sub ID, but in this case here, it is going to be leads coming in from California. And I can further do that, for example, only specific projects or specific times of the day. You can see there are a lot of practical use cases to this bid modification. And that's it. Once we save and activate that, the next incoming ping that meets that condition will have that negative 50% bid adjustment applied to it. That is, again, going to result in a higher bid return back to the vendor, hopefully winning more leads for those California clients. A second use case for lead sellers that we'll go through here, and we're going to set up a new use case, but first I'm going to name this outside service. At least that gives me an idea of what is the rule that's being applied in this case here. So I'm going to go ahead and create a copy of this, or I can build a new service. And then I'm going to adjust my rules here. So in this case, I am going to use a different use case of a source and sub ID. In this case, you have a sub ID that performs okay, but not great. And so I actually want to take 25% more margin if it is coming from that sub ID. So if we're going to buy that lead, we want to be compensated a little bit extra. So again, I can then go to specific sources or that additional criteria. So in this case here, instead of doing this state, I'm going to say only when leads come in from sub ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and that source, that I'm going to have that 25% additional margin taken. The next use case is going to be for lead buyers. So as a lead buyer, I may want to adjust either leads coming from all sources or specific sources, the incoming bid. So in this case, I can either say apply a $5 price, or in most cases, because there is a lot of variance here, I'm going to increase the price 50%. I never want to bid more than $100 in this use case, and I would only want this to be for a specific number of those incoming pings. So in this use case, as a lead buyer, I'm going to use the sub ID. Again, there is a sub ID that performs very well for me, and I want to make sure that I win those leads. So when sub ID XYZ comes in as a ping, I want to return a 50% higher bid. And so again, I can go through and apply those different options and then simply save and activate it. Now we have that new use case all set up. I can name that. And then as I'm doing my analysis, if I find more source sub IDs that meet that criteria, I can simply come here and add them to the list so that they will have that increased bid return. The last use case we're going to go through here today is adjusting the bid based on time of day. This is something that you can do in the filter set as a lead buyer, so not typically needed. But as a lead seller, if you face different competition, there is the opportunity to vary your margin. So for example, for all my sources, I want to take 25% more margin when leads come in at a specific time of the day. So for example, maybe only Saturdays and Sundays, or only leads that come in after a specific time of the day, then I want this additional margin to be applied. So that's 4 ways that you can use the bid modifier to adjust the calculation for the bid on your incoming ping without having to. Again, if it's something you're interested in, please open a support ticket and the team will get it in there as soon as